have a question though, because I was curious about this, and it's sticking with football. Um, I don't think we've ever had this conversation, but what kind of game do you guys prefer watching? Like a very defensive game, or a very high scoring game, like that Dolphins Ravens game was on Sunday?
Um,
Okay, so I know my answer. I want to hear you
I
guys
know my
first.
answer too.
All right, I know my
I'm
answer
probably the
based. Mhm.
I'm probably the only one who isn't 100% sure on the answer. Like, I'm kind of split in the middle. Like, there are some games where I love a high offensive game where it's like, 40, 235 kind of
Like the
thing, or
Super
something
Bowl,
very high.
like
Yeah,
when
exactly.
The Eagles played the Super
That's
Bowl,
exactly
or the Super
that's
Bowl like
that's
the year
it.
before then when it was the Rams and
Rams and
Patriots.
Patriots was very low scoring.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it was funny because most people called that game boring just because it was so defensive. So like, those are two prime examples of like this scenario. I'm kind of hit or miss. It's like some games I'm like I would love to see a high scoring game. Others I would love to see a defensive battle. I don't know. I'm literally like 50-50 on that, to be honest.
So for me, and this is just even from the NFL that we grew up with, I still like having defensive games. I'm defensive all the way. I don't mind seeing offenses, but once I see it gets 35 and over, I'm kind of teetering at that point because I'm like, where's the defense at that point?
Yeah.
Like once you get higher than that, like that Ravens game at the, well, I was like, okay, where's the defense here? Like I know you got
There's not.
Tyreek Hill
Yeah,
and Waddle and everything, but come on. But to me, because again, we grew up, and I still think this, that we probably grew up in the greatest era of the NFL, and
Oh,
that we had a
100% agree.
good
by
amount
far.
of offense, but a
Great amount of
significantly
offense.
and defense.
I fully
I
Like
agree.
would
We will
say
never see that defense again.
so.
We will never see those
no,
defenses again
no, 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 no.
The
ever.
amount of not only good players, the amount of like one
Hall of
legendary
Famers.
players. That's
Yes,
what I'm saying. The amount of legendary players on defense alone we've seen. On top of that, you throw an offense, and we still had some high scoring games, which is
You
crazy.
still had
yeah,
some, but if you think about it, in the era when we grew up in football, from like 2000s, when we were five and stuff like that, right?
yeah.
5 or 6 years old, to 2000, I'd say 12,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
14, when we were in high school, was probably the greatest point of time of football of how many Hall of Famers are going to come through that area,
Oh, easily.
or already have, like
Right.
like Peyton Manning, Ray
Calvin Johnson.
Lewis, Calvin Johnson, like Palomalu. Like think we will never, ever,
No.
ever see defenses like the Steel Curtain,
Mm-mm.
the Legion of Boom, the Ravens 2000s defense. We will never see those defenses again, or players on
No.
those defenses. We'll be like, oh
no,
yeah, they're really good, but no one's ever going to be like a
Like
Brian
in the
Urlacher,
gate, like
Luke
the
Kuechly,
games. Mm-hmm.
Ray Lewis, James Harrison. No one's
Michael
going to ever be like
Strahan for a little bit. He
Michael
was near the
oh,
Strahan.
end of his
absolutely,
career, but he was
Yeah,
so
Strahan
no one's
good.
was
gonna, no one's gonna, no one's
absolutely
gonna see a Palomalu again. Like we're not gonna
no,
see a Palomalu
Or
or
Dawkins.
Ed Reed
or
or
not
Dolphins
even
or
a
Ed
Brian
Reed.
Dawkins.
Like, we're
Yeah.
not gonna see that again. Which is
Like
why I love when we watch these games nowadays. I'm like, yo, that's a really good player, but like,
imagine
bro,
like him playing like 10 years ago. His head's coming off.
yeah, like well,
I
Like
I
you're
think
think
he
not
may
like
not come back on the field ever again.
I think Brady um had an interview and he was like, this league's soft now because he's like before and I could only throw across the middle once
Mhm.
and I'd lose that receiver for the game and I
Yeah,
wouldn't throw across the middle again because I knew Ray Lewis or James Harrison or whoever he was playing could come down and just decapitate him with
Yeah.
no penalty.
yeah,
Now it's like you can't touch the receivers,
Nope.
no. Or
which
two,
I can get
I
it,
get
and
that.
yeah, I can get the health aspect and preventing like concussions and everything, but you do take that aspect of the game out of it. So for me, I
So
going back to my question, I'm defensive all the way. And I get
same
it's
here.
more fun to see an offensive game. But to me, like if I see a game where it's like just throwing it around, like 10-17 or something like that, I'm like, okay, that's a good game. You
well,
got
yeah, because
a decent amount
it's
of offense, but you can tell where the defense came in because nobody could really
right.
get anything going.
No, I agree.
So that's
I
where
am
I am,
100.
but that's also just because of, again, just kind of going old school, but not really that old school because it wasn't that long ago, of just what
Yeah.
we grew up with. I like seeing good defenses. So that's my
I
thing.
I agree with Whitmer. I am like I understand the spectator point portion of it and wanting the views and lots
Mhm.
of high scoring games. And that's what people want. They want to see a high scoring game.
Yeah.
But I'm with Weber. I'd rather see a 10-3, 10-7, 17-10
Mhm.
game of a defense, because of what we grew up with. Of you when you think of it nowadays, like yeah, so I'm wearing Devontae Smith jersey. He can go off for whatever. People get Brown jersey, whatever. Back in the day, you would see people wearing Luke Kuechly, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, James
Malu.
Harrison, Palomalu, Clark,
Almost 100%.
Chancellor, all those players.
You could
Wagner.
actually, in the era we grew up with, you could actually rely on your defense and probably still get to
Yes.
Super
Well,
Bowl.
think about when the
Right
Steelers
now,
won
you
the
have to
Super
have
Bowl.
somewhat of an offense with your
Yeah.
defense
No,
in order to
exactly.
get
The
to
thing,
the
no, this is perfect
conference
example.
finals.
Like you said, Legion and Boom, they should have won 2 Super Bowls. They only won one, but
I'm going back to
they
the
should have
point
won
of the
2.
Steelers, though. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about teams weren't scoring more than 15 points, 14 points on them.
Yeah.
Think about that. Think about going into a game and knowing you're not scoring more than 2 touchdowns on a team.
And imagine a safety like Palomalu, who, similar to what most players can do and have like highlight real moments, he could do it just
Every game.
himself. Yeah. Like the one
Ed
play
Reed
where he
and
stripped
Brian
out over
Dawkins.
the whole pile and get into the quarterback. Like that's just what he did.
So
So for context purposes, for the Steelers, for example, winning the most amount of points they've ever given up in a Super Bowl that they won was 31, but that was way back in 1979. Their more recent Super Bowls, in 2006 against Seattle, they gave up 10 points. And
that was the period of time where
right,
like you weren't scoring on them. You had to go in.
Even in the 2009 Super Bowl, that was a little bit more high scoring. That they gave 23 points to the Cardinals. But even then, that's not the worst you could see.
Yeah, that was the Holmes catch one, right?
Yeah,
San Antonio Holmes, the toe tap.
Think about only scoring 23 in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like it's just that defense, you just weren't you
No.
They could go in the Steelers defense and walk in and be like, you're not scoring 3 touchdowns on us.
In that
win this game.
In that game specifically, James Harrison had like a 102-yard pick six.
I'm not even talking about. I'm just talking about what the team could do.
I know, but I'm saying like they could have even had more points, but if it wasn't for their defense, though,
I'm talking about the mindset of a defense. If you're going in there and knowing the other team's not scoring 21 on you, that's a difference maker.
Yes, it is.
Or it's like if you want to talk, Jeff, you want to talk about Legion Boom. You don't want to throw across the middle to Bobby Wagner. You don't want to throw up. You don't want to throw across the seam because you got Sherman and you got Chancellor back there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So it's like it's the mindset of like anywhere
even the Ravens too.
Ravens defense, the Ravens defense.
You had
Ed Reed in the back. You had Ray Lewis in the middle,
and you had Terrell Suggs too up front.
Terrell Suggs on the line.
So Terrell Suggs was a menace.
Think about that Ravens defense. At one point,
that's why those games, a lot of those games were very low scoring because of those two defenses.
There's a Hall of Famer at every level.
Yeah.
During that period of time, the Steelers and the Ravens, there was going to be one Hall of Famer from every level.
Yep.
Do you know that's like? Think about having a minimum of 3 Hall of Famers on your defense.
Mm-hmm. That's
Rams had to get theirs.
Absurd.
Yeah, Rams had to get theirs.
Yeah.
They had to give everything up. They were like, we're just gonna. But that's like the concept of like. So that's why I agree with Whitmer on the defense.
That's why I still think in the playoffs, I want a good defense. So just right now, I still think whoever wins the Super Bowl is coming from the NFC because I think they have the better defenses.
I agree. Yeah.
So, but when it comes to needing a stop, I trust them more than a team in the AFC. That's just me, right?
No, I completely agree with that. Like coming from my perspective of playing a contact sport back in high school, college, and now is that if we go out there, so my team right now is a very hard-hitting, very defensive team. And we can still score a lot. We put up 41 points this past weekend. We're a very hard-hitting team. So us going out there knowing we're laying the wood, we're putting sticks in you, it's a different mindset of like, okay, rather than if you're Lamar Jackson, where I'm just going to run all over these people. But when you got like a TJ Watt on the other side, It's like I'm laying you out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a different mindset of like I would say it's more exciting
Yeah.
for an offensive player rather than if you're a defensive player. It's more of a it's not exciting. It's more of a I'd say an alpha mentality
I'd agree
of
with
like
that.